I've heard you speak, I think most recently a couple of years ago at the Precision Medicine World Conference, and you said that our current healthcare system is effective once a person is sick with cancer, heart disease, other diseases, but you were talking about the potential of genetics and genomics to bring about true healthcare, which is to prevent disease or keep patients out of the hospital. So if there's a healthy person watching this and they were to consider whole genome sequencing, how could they use that information to manage or prevent disease risk?
Well, I think that genomics, the study of multiple genes and many different variations that you could be carrying, is one of the most powerful ways to keep yourself healthy and to live a long life. There's so much buzz about longevity right now. Well, one of the best ways to live a long time is not to die early. And so, if you can anticipate some of the medical illnesses that you might be vulnerable to, and you can take steps to look for them early or treat them early if you find them, it can truly help you live a longer, healthier life. Now, genomics is one element of this. There's science happening at so many different levels of evidence. So, uh, genomics, which is the study of these variants in your genome, can uncover about 15% of individuals who are carrying a single gene mutation that puts you at risk for a significant medical problem. But that's not all. Your genome can also be used to look for the recessive carrier traits that you're carrying when you get ready to have children. And so you and your partner can know if you happen to be carrying mutations in the same gene, let's say cystic fibrosis or Tay Sachs or any of hundreds of different recessive conditions that could result in a devastated child. That's still not all. You can look at 27 or so genes that specifically manage the metabolism of certain families of medications. And that's the whole arena of pharmacogenomics. And about 80% of people have an atypical response to at least one family of drugs that you might see through the years in your life. And that's still not all. There's something called polygenic risk scores, which is
Mm.
relatively new, in which you add up thousands of small effect size DNA changes and you build a bell curve and you place each human being somewhere on that bell curve. And each of us may be at risk, we may be on the tail end of risk for a common condition like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, prostate cancer, breast cancer, and several other conditions. And again, it's not a crystal ball, but if you know that you're at increased risk, you can take additional steps to monitor and catch things early. So these, just in the genome alone, these are four different ways you can look for and anticipate medical problems. And honestly, it's we're way past the time when we should be using this in day-to-day medicine. The value is unequivocal. It's potentially life-saving. We can debate about how many, if we were going to do 1 million people, we can debate about whether we should look at 3 genes or 20 genes or 81 genes or 5,000 genes. We can have a debate about that. But the fact that we're not using this routinely to anticipate, predict, and prevent illness, it's unfortunate today.
Yeah. I've been a part of product teams with the goal of developing polygenic risk scores as a product for cancer patients or um, but there's challenges that continually come up that we had to overcome, and we didn't necessarily have the technology at the time to overcome those challenges. We needed more data, and that can be a very long tail. But when you talk about polygenic risk scores for, as you mentioned, Alzheimer's disease or diabetes, coronary artery disease, What are the challenges? How far are we away from having those types of products that people can access?
Yeah. The biggest challenge is that in the minds of the general public, genetics is still highly deterministic, meaning a large part of the public thinks that if you have a mutation, you're going to get the disease. They haven't quite switched to understanding that it is a probabilistic marker. And this is probably because of the earliest genetic test that was available and that captured the imagination of the public was Huntington disease. Huntington disease is 100% penetrant, meaning if you have the mutation of a certain size, you're definitely going to get the disease. So that captured our imaginations and gave this frightening determinism to all of genetics. Most of genetics is not like that. Most of genetics is if you have a certain DNA change or a certain polygenic risk score at the tail end of the risk, you are at increased risk. You're not definitely going to get it. That's good news and bad news. It's bad news because it's probabilistic. It doesn't tell you with assurance. But it's good news because you don't have to be as frightened about it. It's like a risk factor that we look for in all the rest of medicine. We look for high blood pressure. We look for elevated cholesterol. We think about family history and take that into account. So these are all ways that we try to risk stratify human beings in the practice of medicine and then give them the attention that they need. So if we can normalize that for genetics, if we can de-exceptionalize genetics, uh, that would be a good thing. As you know, there's been this term about genetic exceptionalism, which means why are we treating this so very differently than other types of medical information? I'll also add that uh, uh, procedural crime shows haven't helped because on
Right.
television, since DNA is a biometric, like a fingerprint, you get over and over and over again this notion that DNA is precise and the DNA tells you the answer. So when people have gotten that kind of messaging, it's often confusing because DNA in healthcare doesn't work quite the same way.